This is the fridge slide that I created, and it's worked fabulously. Actually, it's been perfect for what I needed, and I'm going to change that. All right, let me explain where I'm at with my whole fridge slide scenario. So if you've watched my videos, you know that I've done a couple of fridge slide builds. This is one of them from the F-150. I did one for my Xterra as well, and they've worked great. I've used them for several years now. They've been exactly what I needed. They were fantastic. I highly recommend a fridge slide, but I still decided to go a different route. Let me explain why. So the fridge slide did exactly what it's supposed to do, and that's mostly it gets you the ability to get your fridge into your vehicle and not have to have the vertical space open all the time for the lid to come up and down. In my case, I boxed it in so I can actually get a tub on top of it or other storage space. In this case, you may have a vehicle that this space is already taken. So the fridge works great. It gets it into the vehicle and puts it away so that whenever you need it, you can get it out. That's exactly what it's made to do, and that's how it works great. So I fully believe in a fridge slide in that case. Now, as I've used them for years, there are some cons that I've kind of come across. They're not that major, but they're a little bit of a cons. And let me go through those. First off, in my case, my fridge slide is usually in the truck with me, right behind me, and I found that it does provide a little bit of rattle, and part of that is the inherent to the actual roller slides themselves. They're just never that tight. There's always some movement in there, so as you're bouncing around on the road, it does have the ability to make a little bit of rattle. Again, not a big deal, but I'm kind of a rattle freak, unfortunately. So that wasn't a reason to get rid of the slide by itself. Other cons are basically, the biggest one for me was that you're basically obligated to, for me, I had to use two hands every time I needed it. I have two locking slides. You can't get away with one. They kind of come in pairs. So I did two slides, so I've got to unlock them and pull it out every time. So then if you're coming to the fridge with your hands full of food, you got to find a place to set that down, use your hands, pull it out, open the lid, and then you can put your stuff in. You know, grab the food, put it in. In my case, I also have to use the tube because it locks on the way back in as well. So it'll lock itself out. So if you're on a slope, it won't go back in on its own. So I do need two hands quite often to do it. Another minor con is that with the fridge slide, your refrigerator itself is actually moving in and out. So then you do have to worry a little bit about the cord management, so you don't pinch the cord back in there, and there has to be enough slack in the cord in order to, the power cord I'm talking about, in order to be able to go in and out. So that is one of them. And then the last little thing I can say is the cost. If you're not able to build a fridge slide like I was, you don't have the tools, you don't have the space or whatever, I was able to build like this one for about a little under $90. That's very reasonable, and there's not a problem with that. But if you're buying one, they can be in the hundreds of dollars, depending on what you're looking at. I mean, probably minimum around $300 and up from there. So there is an expense involved if you need it as well, and it may not be this most compact one then, because they're making them more generic and stuff like that. So those are kind of the cons. So basically, what's happened in my case is that I've decided to move away from a fridge slide. I did a 40% seat delete on the rear of my F-150, and I'm moving the fridge over to that side and building I guess you could say a rack around it, and making it so that I can have the fridge just available just to simply be opened and closed without having to pull it in and out. So I do take up some space above the fridge now, so it is going to take a little more room than this is. But in my case, I've kind of made it so I freed up enough room that's not going to be a problem. I've chosen to do about a foot opening. I'm not going to be able to open the lid all the way up, but I found that that's not necessary. And a foot or so up gives me plenty of access to everything that's in there. So then I'm not using all this space. I'm only using this space compared to this. And why am I doing that? Part of that is this, I don't want to call it laziness of having to pull the fridge slide out every single time. I'm on an anti-lazy kick. I'm doing hard plates and silverware instead of paper, and cooking more and all that kind of stuff. So it's not really laziness. My term really is I'm adverse to unnecessary tasks, let's put it that way. And I've just chosen that I wanted to go a little different route. And the other main thing is that I'm a perpetual project person. Once I finish a project, I almost immediately start thinking about what I would do differently or how I could do it different next time. and my brain is already going. So I decided just to try this out and do a different route and see how this works out. So in the video following this part, I'm going to go through how I built and what I did for the shelf around it so I could still utilize more space in the truck around the fridge. And then I also, because I moved this out that was on the driver's side, then I made room to build a drawer system so that I can then store more stuff in the truck. And that's what's coming up in the video here.
I decided to build this rack with 1-inch aluminum square tubing. I bought the thicker wall stuff. It wasn't that much more expensive, so I thought, why not? And the other thing that's nice is you can cut it with pretty much any saw. It won't harm the blades. I've cut it all, and now I have to turn it into a working shelf. And I'm going to use these type of brackets with rivets. And I did get, these are just super cheap. They're like less than 40 cents each, but they're only 1 millimeter. These are 1.5. I think that's a better choice to go. These are a little bit flexible, so hopefully this will all work out. All right, well, I'm using these little metal brackets, and I'm just basically using there's a lip on my welding table so I can make a nice right angle, clamping it down, and then marking and drilling. This was a pretty easy construction method. It's kind of like a rector set style, so it's really not that hard. Probably the worst part about it was I did 100 rivets exactly, and I think I got a blister from the rivet gun from that. You'll see here in a minute how my final usage of this is. It didn't have to be like super strong or sturdy to hold hundreds of pounds or anything, so this method of holding it together works pretty well. Pretty much the main piece of it is that it needs to have something to hold it into place in the truck so it doesn't really slop around much. So I was able to secure it into some bolts that were already there from the seat remove, and then I did some paracord to tie it down to the strapping place too. All right, it's all put together. It's in here. Actually, was able to use a bolt from the seat to secure this down. I just cut a piece of plywood I had and just ran some 4 screws into it. I did have to kind of do a little bit of an angle back by the window. Have a bunch of pieces of scrap wood. Was able to put enough together to make a shelf that's going to go in front of the refrigerator. I'll show you that in a bit. This little shelving unit is a perfect example of how I save basically every scrap of wood I have almost. You never know when it's going to come in handy. I even sometimes grab some from the curb if it says free or something like that. And I built this little shelf system with just extra stuff I had from other projects through the years. Again, this is my standard construction. My go-to style is just to build a box by putting some wood together with glue and some brad nails. It works pretty much every time. I don't have a problem with it. Alright, so I basically made just a simple little shelf. It's going to go in behind the refrigerator. Alright, so this is how this side gets used. Obviously I've got the fridge there. It opens up. I got a bungee across here so it it'll hold it open if I need to, so I can hands-free. It's not wide open, but I found this to be just plenty far, so I can still get everything out I need and see what I need. Otherwise, I've got a little bit of room between the fridge and the seat, and I've got like my toe strap and stuff in there. And then when it comes to the actual shelf that I built, this is how I installed it. Put a little lip down here as a support that goes down to a metal bracket that I fashioned. And then I was able to get a tub and a half worth of recovery gear and so forth in here. I'm not sure how that happened, but it all works well. The door all holds it into place. I've done some off-road trips and it just stays just fine. So down below here I've got my jack and other long things like a breaker bar and stuff like that, a hatchet. That's all very accessible. Before, the jack was underneath the seat and I couldn't get to it without taking everything out. Here I've got my tool rolls and some air, the tire patch thing. I've got on this shelf I've got the straps and soft shackles, and I keep my pump here. I gotta because it gets hot, I got a rag in between that. On here I've got my jumper for battery jumper, and then this is the hose, and then there's other goods behind there. So like there's a bit of rope and stuff like that I keep around. So that's all. It all fits in there well, and it works great. As far as how I fastened this, there was 2 bolts sticking up from the original seat, and I'm actually able to just tap right onto those and added that in. So this holds really solid. It doesn't go anywhere.
So up on top, here's where I put the tub of dry food that I always carry with me. So I have all my food on one side, the fridge and the dry goods. And then I also put both of my my battery packs here. I use a lashing strap to hold them in, and then I've got it really easily accessible and holds it pretty good in shape.
So I very seriously thought about doing 100% seat delete in the back seat in my pickup, but there's still times I think that it may come up that I want to do some passengers with it. So I decided I can get by with this. I did the 40% delete, and that gets me some more storage. It helped quite a bit, and I'm leaving the 60% left in case I ever want to take 2 passengers, and there'll still be room. My theory is also that 40%, the rack I put in where the 40% delete is, didn't quite take all the room. So even if there's 2 passengers on the 60, there's a little bit more shoulder room and stuff like that. So it should still be pretty comfortable in the back. And I also wanted to make it so it's fairly easy to take whatever I have in the 60% side in there in and out pretty easily. So basically I decided to make some drawers. Doing it thrifty overland style. Again, it's kind of a box that I'm gluing and nailing together, and then I'm going to basically do some 4 drawers in this case. The outside dimensions of this ended up being 36 inches deep, give me a little bit of room behind it so I can get around it. I'm 20 inches wide. That way I've got a little bit of room on the side to put, I can get my chairs in and out of there. And then it's 30 inches tall. That gives me right at the height where my vision in the rear view mirror allows me to see over it, and still makes room that I can store some plastic tubs on top of it if I want to.
All right, so the basic box is now all put together, and glue is dried. Now I'm going to basically have 4 drawers into this, so I've got to basically put in 3 dividers, and I went ahead and marked already the lines where the dividers are going to go. That's going to hold the shelves. And then I'm going to just basically do screws along there so that I can actually, if I decide to change my sizes of drawers at one point or something like that, I can still unscrew it and change this whole thing. So from here, it's just as simple as lining up the board per the lines that I've created on here. And then I'm just using a drill with a countersink already built in, and pre-drilling the holes and then just screwing them in. Quite often having the right tool around certainly makes the job a lot easier. I happen to have purchased these off of Amazon, link will be below, to kind of help me with another project, and it really works out great to hold this shelf into place, because it's otherwise it'll flop around and I won't be able to drill it as easy. Also, I want to talk about the screws. I'm just using, in this case, they're 1.5 inch screws. The material itself is 1/2 inch thick, and I've always kind of heard a rule of thumb is when you're going through this into this other material on the edge, that you want to do twice as thick into that other material than the thickness of the first part of it. So it's a 1/2 inch, so then I want another full inch going into the material. So that's why I'm using the 1.5 inch nails. You may be thinking, what do I need dividers for if the drawer slides are going to be there? Well, I'm going to do this in true thrifty overland style and save some money, and I didn't go with drawer slides in this case. They were going to be pretty expensive. 36 inch deep ones are going to be hundreds of dollars. So that was a big savings. And then also the other thing about drawer slides is it does take space on each side, so you lose over 1 inch of drawer space across 36 inches. Kind of adds up. So I decided to just go with the drawer sliding on the wood shelf in there. 1 inch by 35 inches long by 8 inches tall across 4 drawers adds up to like 1,100 square inches that I actually gained. The drawer construction is again just standard box material, and this is a good example in this image showing you how I basically ran out of wood and I didn't want to cut a bunch more and ruin into a whole other piece of plywood. So this side wasn't all the way up, but I was able to use some scrap pieces to just fasten it to that and make a complete side out of it without burning up another piece of wood. So there's always ways to kind of put things together thrifty, and it holds up just as well as any other drawer. With some of the scrap wood I had around it, which wasn't much, I was able to do this entire drawer setup in exactly buying 2 full sheets of 1/2 inch plywood. A helpful little tip I found on this one is I used an online free website called OptiCutter. You put in some dimensions and it allows you to basically optimize your cuts on your sheet of plywood for what you need on sizes of the actual final product, and that was really helpful. This 4 drawer setup had 28 individual pieces, so it was really helpful to kind of tweak the numbers on it and try different things and figure out the most efficient sheet cut. I'll put the link in the description. Once it's all glued and nailed together, then I clamp it down. I've got a few clamps. At one point I had bought a kind of a contractor pack of door handles that we used in our kitchen and baths, and we ended up with a few extras, so I'm able to use them on the drawers.
My out-the-door price on this whole drawer system was 2 sheets of plywood at $49 a piece. I already had things like the screws, the drawer handles, and even the locking mechanism that I used, but those would have probably added up to another $15, $20 total. And otherwise, you probably would need to get a 3rd sheet of plywood if you're going to make something similar without scrap wood.
All right, to keep the drawers kind of snug and not rattling too much, I've got this kind of just came with some packing foam of some sort, and I'm just marking it out. I'm going to cut this and just double stick tape it to the back of each drawer, and it'll kind of rest against that. All right, so the drawers obviously have no slides or anything, but they're pretty smooth and they slide pretty good. I mean, they just come right out. If I shove them in, if I'm not careful, it'll just, it'll actually just keep going right on through almost. I haven't got the back on it yet. I'm going to do that now, but I wanted to have access to the back before I put it on. But these actually roll pretty smooth, so not a problem. Weight obviously will change that a little bit, but I don't think I don't even think I'm going to bother to wax it or anything to begin with. All right, so I made a simple lightweight structure for this drawers to sit on. I just did a 2x8 that I cut down. It's old. I can see I got paint on it. It was just some scrap I had. And then I bought some 1.5 inch by 1/2 inch tubing so that it's got a lot of stiffness to it and can hold some weight, and that'll kind of just keep it up. And then there's still plenty of room here for some plastic tubs to go under. So I'm just screwed into the holes that I had my other platform on as just the base of the seats, and then I got the lag bolts into the wood, and it's just simply got to sit there and hold it. I got 2 holes for I'm gonna basically drill, or there's a carriage bolt gonna come down from the drawer unit itself on the bottom, and then this will hold that into place so that it can't shift this way either. All right, so all installed. It's all in. Just sitting on the base. I have a couple of carriage bolts down in here holding it to the metal base, and then we just got the drawers, and everything's ready to roll. We can lock it. And there we go. Now it can't come out. Still enough room above it to put the 7-inch tubs. Alright, so right now the way I've got this working, I've already done one trip with it. It's worked out great. I've got the stove underneath in that area, and there's even room behind that even for a plastic tub or so for other storage. If I use my full-size chair, that sits on the edge of that just fine. And then as far as what I use it for, bottom drawer is all cooking. I've got everything I've used, pots, pans, extra stoves, plates, silverware. Underneath here is utensils. So pretty much all my kitchen gear all fit into one. That's of course the heaviest drawer, so that has a little bit more friction than the rest, but the rest of these just slide easy. This drawer right now, I'm just putting odds and ends in it. Nothing really important, just other odds and ends I haven't really found a place for yet. I don't even have anything to go into this drawer yet. Someday. And then my top drawer I'm using as my clothing drawer for all my clothing. That's probably one of the reasons why this drawer is empty, is I'll probably leave that for my wife whenever she goes on a trip. Hey, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you hit that like button and subscribe. We'll see you on the trail.